On the 30th of May, Secret Archives of the Vatican are releasing our third album of the year. It's going to be called Vow Engine. It's a reasonable question to ask, why are you releasing so much music and why 3 albums in such a short period of time? Why albums in this time of playlists and single tracks? And there's a bunch of factors there. Firstly, in the modern day, you can release as much music as you like. You don't need lead times to get things printed and pressed up and distributed physically into shops. None of that exists. You could release a track every day if you felt like it. All the music marketing gurus say you should release tracks maybe every 8 weeks. And their thinking is around promotion to radio, blogs, magazines, what's left of them. None of that applies to us. There's no magazines, there's no radio, there's no blogs, there's nobody who has the slightest interest in what we do from that perspective. Most of the marketing gurus also say that when you're unknown, you need to get a lot of music out there so that your name crops up in just released lists, release radar on Spotify, for example. So that's why we create so much music. But what's with the albums? Very roughly speaking, younger people tend to live with single tracks, playlists, that kind of thing. People my age are probably still tied to the idea of albums. I'm in my mid-60s. Now, our data shows that most of our listeners on Spotify, at least, which is where we have most of our listeners and where we get the best data, are between 24 and 44. So they are considerably younger than me. My musical partner Louis is 10 years younger than me. They're actually a good bit younger than him. So you'd think that they'd be the kind of people who are just into individual tracks. However, because we dip into particular genres at the moment anyway, such as dark folk and neo folk, these are genres where people still buy albums. It's where people still buy CDs. Unfortunately, that's not very financially viable for us to produce CDs, but there is still an interest in albums. So our policy has been, we release a bunch of tracks, and when we've released 6 or 7 tracks, we will then put them onto an album, and in most cases we'll then add 1 or 2 tracks to make it attractive for those who might have already listened to or downloaded the singles. Here's something extra when you get the album. That's why. Our first album this year was called Unwritten. Bunch of tracks, dipping in and out of different subgenres, but no particular theme. The second album, which was in April, was called Obsidian Whisper, and those tracks very much tie together. That is a very cohesive album. It makes for a good listen. And Vow Engine, which is coming up at the end of May, once again, the tracks work together really well. It's very coherent. A choice I've made also is to keep the albums to somewhere between 30 and 40 minutes long, no longer than that. That pretty much ties into the length of most old vinyl albums. And in those days, it was for purely practical reasons how much music you cram onto a side of vinyl. But my thinking is that we still live in the modern era where people don't tend to focus on one thing for a whole hour or whatever. But a 35-minute listen, I think, works really well. So that's the kind of length I aim for when I release an album. I totally love making videos to go with the music. There is debate as to what the purpose of that is in the modern day when there's no such thing as MTV or anywhere where videos get played other than YouTube. However, YouTube is the biggest search engine in the world, and there's a lot of data showing that people find their new music on YouTube more than they do on the streaming platforms, which is interesting. I mostly make the videos because I like making them, and I've been playing with when to release them, either ahead of the release of the tracks or on the same day as the release of the tracks. And everything so far has shown me that it makes not the slightest bit of difference. I suspect that the people who might watch a video of our music on YouTube are different people from those who will stream or download from a site. Anyway, that's how we're operating at the moment. And whether you only listen to the individual tracks or whether you do stream or download entire albums, we are very grateful for your interest in our music and for your support. Thank you.